Welcome back. So Chelsea in action tonight, and Romelu Lukaku sat down with his former Everton teammate Tim Howard to talk about how regaining his form can help Chelsea in their title bid.
Big Rom, let's go.
Let's go, bro.
You're looking well. Let's jump right in. Your last appearance for Chelsea was 2013. You had 8 years away. When you come back full circle now, coming back to Stamford Bridge, what were the key factors that led you back?
Obviously, I think trying to win the Premier League was something that was on my mind. I mean, you know me, like that's been my goal since the youngest age. That, you know, the fact that, you know, when we were at Everton together that we didn't win bothered me like as well, because then I went to Manchester United and there we didn't win as well. I went to Italy and yeah, there I won. So like I was telling myself like that it still was inside of me that, you know what, like I want to win in England.
You were on loan at West Bromwich, you were on loan at Everton, and then at a certain point you said, okay, Chelsea's in the rearview mirror now, I've got to move forward, and you signed permanently with Everton, which is our biggest ever signing in our history. How was that period for your overall growth?
Me and Jose Mourinho, we always had like that honest relationship, but it was like, you know, it could be love, but then sometimes very confrontational. But I liked it, you know, because at the end of the day, you tell each other the truth. So I remember Diogo Costa signing for Chelsea after he was killing it at Atletico. So I was like, well, here we go.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to play second fiddle like that, you know, I need to play. So then, you know, Martinez and Bill Kenwright, you know, the chairman, like they made the effort to get me at Everton, and that's where I was like, you know what, I'm a young player. Everton, you know, has the reputation of, you know, giving young players an opportunity if they do well. From my progression as a young kid at the time, it was the best. It was the best thing to do.
You talked about Roberto Martinez there and Jose Mourinho. You're playing for another brilliant manager, and I feel like Thomas Tuchel hasn't done a lot of things wrong. Since he's come in, he's like the puppet master. What's been the secret to his success? Because we see it on the outside.
I think he adapts really quick. If you don't have character, it's difficult.
Yes.
You know, also like now that like the younger players now, they have more personality than, you know, me and Ross had back in the day. You know, we were like outspoken but very quiet at the same time. Maybe you, when you started, young guys didn't have anything to say, you know, and now times are changing where, you know, younger guys, they'll come in, but they have a personality and they know what they want to do. He knows like when to put an arm around you for those younger players, but also when to, you know, tell you like, yo, you're not doing this or this or this. So I think he knows how to adapt to the players' personalities, but also, you know, every game plan, there is a different plan.
You're competing for the Premier League title. You're in the knockout stages of the Champions League. It's not going to be monumental steps. It's going to be one little thing. What's the one thing as a team that you guys talk about? The thing, if we can do this, this will put us over the edge.
Resilience, Tim. Resilience. Because, you know, when we play against those tough physical opponents, like I remember the game at West Ham recently, where we were not as resilient. Burnley at home, you know, physical opponent, draw again. Watford, we won, but it was a battle, you know. So I think if we add that resilience to our game, yeah, bro, like we can fight until the end for sure. Every game is a final because the other teams are chasing. And that's what happened to us. We didn't win a couple of games, boom, boom. We went from first to third, like that. Now we have to make sure that we don't lose and then wait for that moment until they drop points. But then also like when we have like the direct game against each other, we have to make sure we win.
Ron, listen, I appreciate your time. I miss you. You and I'll talk.
I miss you too, bro.
But thanks for your time and insight. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, brother. Love, always.
And we appreciate them both.
Yeah.
Is Lukaku being appreciated enough at Chelsea? Are they using him in the right way? Are they helping him to get back to peak form?
No, I think that what they brought him back for, you know, I think he was very much on track until the injury came along. Because like I tipped Chelsea at the start simply because they they brought him in. It's not quite happened at the moment simply because he's not scored as many goals because of the injuries. He's coming back in now. You're looking at the team and Mason Mount, 6, Jorginho, 6 penalties. Then you've got Reece James. You can't have wing-backs, penalty takers as top goal scorers in your team if you've got aspirations. So, of course, you know, with Lukaku there, coming back in, he needs to get himself back in and Chelsea do what they were doing, what I saw them do at the start of the season, what I saw them do at Arsenal, to be honest. They need to start playing like they were playing like that again because they're very much way up there in respect of winning the league. But it's not going to happen unless Lukaku can get that form back and Werner as well can kick himself in and start scoring and finishing off chances. But they're not a million miles away. So I think the only thing they're away is Lukaku getting back in and starting to score again. Yeah,
because the idea was that Lukaku would come in and score the goals, which would take the pressure off Werner, who could have a more sort of supplementary role, if you like, rather than being the main goal scorer for Chelsea.
Can continue to miss without people really worrying about it.
That was what I was trying to say in a nice way. But he could create. He could have a more creative role.
He's still got a massive role to play at Chelsea, Timo Werner, without a shadow of a doubt.
I mean, look, 11 appearances, 3 goals from Romelu Lukaku. He had such a blistering start to the season. It felt like he was going to just cruise through this season. Obviously, he's had injury problems. What do you think is going on with him?
I think looking at him, he came back on against West Ham. It didn't look the same player to me as when he went out before he was injured. I don't know whether he's put a bit of weight on. He looked cumbersome. He didn't want to make movement. So he's got to get back on the horse again. He's got to start, making good movement. He's got to get fitter. I don't know how hard they've worked. And they've had so many games back to back. You sometimes leave him with the fitness coach, but I think the manager sometimes has to really spend time with him to get him back, because he's got a big part to play for Chelsea to get back to where they were. I believe they will, because they've got such depth. That, City and Chelsea probably got more depth than maybe Liverpool as well. But those 3 standout teams, what they have got is a depth to their squad, quality. When one player's out, 17 different players have scored for Chelsea. Yes, of course, you don't want a penalty taker, as Ian says, or a wing-back as your top goal scorer. So Lukaku's got a lot to do. And this is the moment for Lukaku. We all thought when he came to the club, this was going to be a big difference. And we all thought that. And he started well. But actually, it's a long old season. Things happen. He's had to come out because of this injury. Now, not the pressure, but the expectation within the camp is on him now, and he's got to produce. Yeah, because, look, Chelsea could potentially go to within 2 points of Manchester City at the top of the table tonight. It's not like they've dropped out of this race by any stretch of the imagination. But in order to go and chase down the title between now and May, do they need Lukaku to be scoring at the rate that maybe we expected he would be?
Yeah, they do. I mean, they've not been short of goals while he's been out. No. And I think the interesting thing about him is that at the start of the season, Thomas Tuchel was talking about his impact on other players in terms of their creativity, but they've been very fluid without him in the side. The interchange of their front threes been quite impressive to watch, and their slip-ups in the last couple of weeks have more been defensively rather than offensively. They haven't had enough protection for the back four. They've missed N'Golo Kante. I don't think they concede that goal against Man United if N'Golo Kante's playing, because he's got the energy to recover that ball. But certainly, I think as far as Lukaku's concerned, I agree. I think that if he's playing, then he puts them more on the front foot. He gives opposition teams more to worry about at the other end of the pitch. Without him, I think they see that they've got an opportunity maybe to take Chelsea down. And Chelsea in this moment are wobbling a little bit. They've got to make sure that they can put that right tonight. Yeah, so how important is that game tonight in terms of their title charge, because of as Darren was saying, about keeping momentum as much as anything, isn't it? It's must win when you're in that top 3, because you, like Lukaku said, if he actually said it, you have a couple of games where you don't quite get the results and bam, you're third. And what happens is that if you continue to draw while other teams are winning, you look at Liverpool and City and you think, well, when will they lose? It's going to have to be something drastic for them to lose. You don't know when they're going to lose. You, as the team in third, Chelsea, you have to win. It's not like a we could draw, because then what you do is, if you don't win, you're hoping that they'll win. You can't look at City and Liverpool and think they're going to lose. You have to think, well, they'll beat them, so we have to win tonight. It's a must-win game for Chelsea.
Does it feel like a game that's, particularly because of the point of the season it comes at for Chelsea, that they have to take all 3 points?
They've got to, yeah, they have. You can't hand your opponents, those 3 points. If they were to lose or draw, they drew at home to Burnley, and they could have battered Burnley, but they didn't. They didn't take their chances, and they lost points. With a team, not so much Liverpool. Liverpool nearly dropped points at Wolves. They got a late winner. But City, for instance, are not going to give away points. I think Lukaku said it in his interview. They're 6-pointers. When they play each other, they're 6-pointers. And I think City have got Liverpool and Chelsea at home to play, which puts them in the driving seat. So they cannot, for that reason, they cannot, on a game like home to Everton. It's a good time to play Everton, let's be fair.
Yeah.
The fixtures have come nicely for Chelsea on this day, and I think Chelsea will beat Everton because the desire will be there. And they've got to go again. But this is the challenge of the Premier League. It's a long, hard, gruelling season. Teams are going to get hit with injuries. As we say, we're talking about the mentality and the injuries and the fatigue of West Ham. Well, this is what's semi-happened to Chelsea, but I think they've got the squad to cope.
Yeah, much bigger squad as opposed to Everton, who've had injuries, and they had a bad injury list already, and then midweek it's just started to get worse and worse for them at a time when they're struggling to get results and performances.
Andros Townsend's out now. I think Seamus Coleman is out as well. And I just think Rafa Benitez must just be thinking, have I walked under a ladder or driven over a black cat or something? I mean, is that the right analogy?
Yeah. I mean, that'll do. We get the drift. It's a little macabre, but...
sorry, cats, if you watch.
Cat lovers.
But I think as far as Rafa's concerned, he's going to have to find a way just to help them to... even just to shut up shop against Chelsea. And he is helped, as I say, by the fact that their confidence is quite fragile at the moment, and it might just be that he catches them on a good day. But I can't see anything other than Chelsea winning tonight and keeping the pressure and boosting their morale, if anything else, because they do need a convincing win just to kind of say, we're back, we're still in this title race, we're not falling away just yet.
No, particularly as well because Liverpool are taking on a Newcastle side who did get their first win a couple of weeks ago, but that may have been something of a false dawn.
Yeah, but even that, Kels, like you saw with Liverpool, with Wolves, Wolves, it was tough, and Wolves will make it tough for anyone. But, Origi scored, they got it done. And this is, I'm sure Chelsea, if it happened tonight where Chelsea, as long as they get it done with the one, they'll take it at this stage of the season, because I totally agree with Darren. And Man City they're not giving up. They're not losing games at the moment. You can't see it happening. Liverpool will get it done. Chelsea have to get into that mode as well. And you look at, for me, Everton's side, I watched them against Arsenal, and Demarai Gray was magnificent in the end, but with the way Rafa is and the way Rafa's teams are and the way he was at Newcastle, very, deep block and, counter-attack and trying to just keep people off him. I think it's a kind of a managing style that, in this current climate, I'm not sure it's going to work out for him. He needs to, I don't know what...
Particularly because of the issues that there are at the club, that it is maybe something where, in everybody fit, the results are sort of all right, then you can have a manager who's a disciplinarian, a Rafa Benitez type, but it was... because things aren't going well, because there are injuries, that actually you maybe need somebody who's a bit more upbeat. A little bit more, free spirit. In fact, because Everton have to try and create and do more than I saw them do the other day, especially against Arsenal.
Just on the back of that, if you look at the situation of him and Luka Digne, right, Luka Digne's fit, but Luka Digne clearly doesn't want to play for Rafa Benitez anymore. There's a breakdown in the relationship between them. Rafa, in the press conference yesterday, criticised Luka Digne and appeared to suggest... Luka Digne basically said he wasn't well enough to play. Rafa appeared to suggest, I choose the words carefully, that wasn't a convincing enough excuse for him not to be available. Now, when you consider the injuries that they've got at the club, you need everybody on board. Yeah. You need everybody committed to what you're trying to do. And if you don't have that, then that says to me two things. A, obviously you're in trouble, but B, maybe something about your leadership is not really getting the players on board.
And more importantly as well, though, Darren, it touches other players. It spreads. There's another player might take the side of the of Lukaku or whatever the problems are. So you don't want that. You cannot afford to have that. It will fester and go into other players. Everyone's got to be on board for Everton at this moment in time at that football club, from the board right the way through to the laundry lady. That's how they've got to be if they're going to get back and Rafa's going to do the job that he's been brought in to do. It's tough with that when you haven't got your best players, particularly an Everton at the moment. You've got to have your best players, and when they had a decent start to the season, it's because their best players were playing.
I read the other day when he mentioned that when he took Richarlison off, Richarlison wasn't quite right, so they took him off. The fans obviously went against him, but then when you see how Richarlison reacted, knowing that they're trying to protect him, says to me that they're not really fighting for this manager, if I'm going to be totally honest, simply because he's waving his arms a little bit and acting like, why are you taking me off? That's purely for the fans. Yeah. That doesn't help Rafa, and this is why I feel right now, with Lukaku doing that, with Richarlison doing what he's doing, it just feels like they're probably waiting for the next guy, if I'm going to be totally honest. Yeah. It feels like that, Gaffer. You can start feeling there's players in there, like you're saying, who are starting to side with, I don't like what he's doing here and this and that. It doesn't feel good for Rafa at the moment, especially the way he plays.
Do you know, just very quickly, Kat, I mean, if anything, I hope that's a message for Newcastle in terms of the recruitment. We talked many times on the show about how they've got to get their recruitment right. And when you look at the clubs who do get it right, they pick good characters as well as good footballers. And when you get good characters, you don't have a situation where a Richarlison creates when he's being brought on. He sees the bigger picture. You don't get Lukaku waving the white flag if that is the case. We don't know that to be the case, but if Rafa Benitez's words are correct, what you do get is everybody pulling in the same direction, like a Xherdan Shaqiri at Liverpool, like a Jared Bowen at West Ham. Everybody's pulling in the same direction, no matter how many minutes or how few minutes they get. And at Everton, they don't have that. No. And that's why, if Rafa does stay, I think he's already started with a little bit of a review of the backroom staff, but they're going to have a root and branch review of the squad and get characters in who are committed to what they're trying to do.
So we're talking about tonight potentially as significant in the title race, with Everton up for Chelsea, Newcastle up for Liverpool. Actually, this could be the club that this could be most significant for tonight is Everton.
Well, without a doubt, and it's ironic that Rondon goes on for Richarlison and scores. So the manager did something right. And if I'm right, I might be wrong saying this, but have I read Richarlison's out for a few weeks with the injury?
Rafa said after the game he'd been brought off for an injury.
To try and protect him.
So, which makes the reaction of Richarlison
ridiculous.
Stranger.
Makes it even more magnified.
What is what I'm saying, Gavin?
More negative.
That's him doing something to bring heat on his manager. So, like what Darren's saying, that there's the disharmony is in there. So unless something drastic happens, there's no way Chelsea loses today, simply because of the mindset of the Everton players at the moment.
If Everton lose, which I think they will, if it's 1-0 and they're fighting for their manager, fighting for themselves, fighting for their club, that's a bonus for Everton. All right, it's a silly thing to say in many ways, because you might get a point, they might get a win. Of course, it's a game of football, anything can happen. But if they did lose the game, fighting 1-0, if they get battered 4 or 5, that is a major concern for the manager and the club.
So those two games will go ahead, but Tottenham's match against Leicester is officially off this evening. Tottenham have had real problems with COVID and the game will not take place. We've talked about Tottenham, and if they win their games in hand, then they could go back above Arsenal, but it's going to get longer and more intense